Hey everybody, what's up? My name is Juan, I'm just one reader, and welcome back to the third installment in my series on rereading Harry Potter as an adult. Today I will be discussing Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I distinctly remember reading this book for the first time about 15 years ago when I was 9 or 10, and I was just amazed with J.K. Rowling's ability to pull off everything that she pulls off in here, as if J.K. Rowling were some kind of mastermind genius capable of absolutely anything in the world. I felt so tricked by her, and I loved the feeling of everything sort of unveiling at the end. I remember that the first time, or the first times that I read it when I was younger, when I was a child, I felt that this book definitely marked a difference between the first two books in the series and the other installments in the series, and I can see why. Reading this now as an adult, I can definitely see that the writing is becoming a little bit more adult, or rather a little bit less childlike. It's maybe not that kind of novel like Goblet of Fire that really acts as a bridge between the first half of the series and the last one. This one maybe doesn't accomplish exactly that. It doesn't really feel as mature as Goblet of Fire does. It doesn't quite accomplish what Goblet of Fire does, in my opinion, but this one definitely feels a little step away and a little step further from the previous two books, which, as you can see in my previous reviews in this series of rereading Harry Potter, definitely have felt like a very simplistic middle grade, albeit very good ones, very funny, but very simplistic middle grade novels. This one feels a little bit more than just a middle grade book. However, even though the writing in this book feels more mature and we start to foreshadow and catch a glimpse of what's coming up next in the series, I still feel like there's a lot of childlike elements to this book. We can really see that J.K. Rowling is kind of crossing some kind of audience, target audience, but she is still writing for a quite young age of readers. We can see this in many different ways. We can see this in the writing itself, the way that the sentences are quite simple, they're very straightforward, they are quite short sentences, even if the book itself is significantly longer. We can see this also in the way that everything feels a little bit caricature-esque, a little cartoonish maybe, particularly when it comes to certain cliches or certain stereotypes. For example, the bad guys are usually fat, or they have some kind of physical deformity or physical mark. This is not always what happens, but usually there's something there that you can analyze. For example, the way that the Dursleys are always depicted physically as being quite grotesque, particularly Vernon and Dudley. And this is something that Stripped Cover Lit, Adrian and Dalton from Stripped Cover Lit have continuously strived to remark on, is how J.K. Rowling really defines these bad, unlikable characters by their physical appearance. And there's this like deliberate intention of making these characters unlikable because of their appearance, by making them fat or ugly, or, you know, having thick necks or very big mustaches, or really, I don't know, oily skin, whatever. But yeah, there's some kind of physical descriptions that I was not very comfortable with in this reread. Then, of course, we have the issue of the beginning of the book. The first chapters definitely feel like recap chapters previously in Harry Potter, and we get pretty much a summary of the previous books, which is not bad in my opinion. I think it's pretty understandable why she's doing this. Many people were reading this for the first time without having read the previous two books, or even if we had read the previous two books, we really needed to have our memories refreshed. So I didn't really find that an obstacle to my experience, but it does definitely tell me that the target audience for this book in particular is still pretty young. Okay, so now I would like to discuss some of the things that I picked up on now that I'm an adult and now that I have more experiences, particularly now that I am a teacher and I was able to read this book not just exactly from the perspective of the students, the Hogwarts students, but also from the teachers' perspective. It was really interesting because I had never, ever, ever done that before, and I was able to empathize with these teacher characters, which, by the way, are awesome. So, talking about education, I've always had a special feeling towards Hogwarts when it comes to education. I really like how, even though it's a super traditional, conservative school system with the houses and everything feels very strict and rigid and you have to memorize everything, exams, evaluation, that's not really what avant-garde evaluation or avant-garde education is all about nowadays. However, I really like Hogwarts education system because of the practical approach that they have, particularly in classes, in subjects such as defense against the dark arts, or even potions, charms, transfiguration, all these kinds of things that are just very practical. And we always see the students engaged in learning. We see them interacting with whatever it is that they're learning, and we see a lot of that in this particular book with the divination methods. We see them completely not just studying it but living the experience of the divination methods. We see that very much so with the magical creatures lessons with Hagrid. We see that with Lupin. We see that even with Snape. So even though Hogwarts has this kind of very conservative feel to it, I think their education system is quite strong in that way. However, there are certain issues that I saw in that education system. For example, Snape bullying students constantly and no one says anything. No one is in charge. There's no supervisor. No one is in charge of observing teachers. No one is in charge of giving feedback to the teachers. What's up with that? I mean, a professor such as Snape, just because he has a certain standard or a certain authority, is he allowed to do absolutely anything that he so desires? No. What's up with that? Then something else. Bean's lectures. Professor Bean's lectures are the worst thing for education ever. That whole subject of history of magic should not exist in the way that it is described here. I know it's very comic and it really helps J.K. Rowling get some comic relief because those lessons are really fun, but if you think about Hogwarts being a real school, those lessons are shit. Those are the kinds of lessons where you learn absolutely nothing and you have to memorize everything. Now, something else. There's no adjustments and no inclusion in Hogwarts. There's no mention of students with special needs or with with special needs in terms of anything. We don't see anyone with a disability or a handicap or anything. And there's one character in this universe, and his name is Neville Longbottom. And I am going to say right now, here in front of you, I believe that Neville Longbottom, in the way that he is described in the first books, definitely makes me feel as though he has some kind of cognitive or some sort of problem, some sort of issue, condition, disorder, call it whatever you like. I really feel like he is the type of student that would need nowadays in the avant-garde educational system that we have nowadays. He would receive an adjustment. He would need something, as he would require something special, something extra, something different in order to organize himself better, be better able to perform what he needs to perform and do what he has to do and learn what he has to learn, because really Neville suffers a lot in these lessons. And the last thing I want to say about education and Harry Potter and Hogwarts is, what's up with having a drunk teacher as a member of your staff, and you know, he lives in this hut, sort of separated from the castle, and he's constantly drunk. He is sometimes emotionally unstable. I mean, God, I love Hagrid, but let's face it, sometimes he's drunk. He is a staff member, and he is a very important figure to many of the protagonists who are 13-year-olds. So I'm not really criticizing Hagrid. He is my absolute favorite guy, and I love J.K. Rowling's way of making this character. But if you really think about it, what's up with that? What is up with that? I mean, really, let's think about it. And since we're in the topic of characters and characterization, I would like to make a special mention for the teachers in this particular novel. Some of them we have seen before, such as Dumbledore, Snape, McGonagall. Some of them we have never seen before, such as Trelawney, Lupin. But I just loved their interactions, and I think that's something that we don't see nearly enough of in the movies, and I'm really, really sad because this is something that people would love to read and would love to see. There's a particular scene in Christmas when our protagonists are having breakfast or lunch or dinner or something with the members of the staff. And we see the interaction, just the conversation between Dumbledore, Snape, Trelawney, and McGonagall. And I swear that was probably my favorite scene from this reread of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I was laughing my ass off. I thought Dumbledore in particular, and well, all of them, but Dumbledore in particular was hysterically funny. And this brings me to another issue, which is what's up with movie Dumbledore. I mean, I love Michael Gambon and I have nothing but great respect for him, but what's up with the way that Dumbledore is portrayed in the movies? He feels like another character completely, just another person altogether. He doesn't feel like Dumbledore at all to me. I don't know if that's exclusive to me or maybe you guys have felt it too, but I read this book and I see absolutely nothing of Michael Gambon's portrayal and the way that he was directed in the original recipe Dumbledore by J.K. Rowling. Dumbledore is more like Yoda, like this kind of very wise but kind of really crazy person, and he is hilarious. He has the best lines, the best punchlines. I loved him. Also, McGonagall making fun and constantly having this kind of rivalry with Trelawney, and how she's always constantly minimizing divination, like a very imprecise science or an imprecise discipline. I loved that interaction. I loved those characters. Obviously, another character that I adored is my favorite character, Hermione Granger. She is fantastic in this book, from beginning to end. Everything that she does, she is pretty much the hero or the heroine in this book. She provides the ultimate kind of solution for the problem, but she's just so delightful to read about. Everything that she has to put up with, everything that she has to do, she is constantly mortified with work, and she is a character that I completely relate to. I identify with her 100%. I love her, and we can really see that J.K. Rowling has put a special focus in this character. She is not just another supporting character. No, JK, she is your heroine. My general conclusion of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban: I can see that this book has its issues, like the author trying to write for a very young audience while at the same time trying to be more mature in terms of writing and themes. Some things obviously feel kind of tricky and gimmicky, like why had we never really seen Professor Trelawney before until this one? Or what's up with time travel? I mean, that just opens another big can of worms. Regardless of that, this book in particular is extremely readable and enjoyable. It is a page-turner, and we see the world building of J.K. Rowling. Even though she's not building maybe like a big fantasy epic universe, she's building a small-scale universe very much contained within a school and its rules. At this point in the series, she does it wonderfully. Full marks on that. Everything comes alive in this book. I ran out of time, but that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I hope you enjoy this review, and I will see you for the next installment, Goblet of Fire.